Welcome to the Coalition of Black-led Community-Based Organizations Candidate Forum Week. We are delighted you choose to be with us tonight. We want you to have a safe and wonderful experience. Please be assured that your safety as well as your enjoyment of the event are our utmost concern. We are a coalition of like-minded organizations. Our goal is to ensure members of our communities are informed that they can make the best decision when electing representatives to office. We will maintain a balanced opportunity for all candidates to express their views. We are nonpartisan and do not support any political party or candidate. Also, during this COVID-19 pandemic, please remember to wear your mask, wash your hands, and always stand 6 feet apart from others. Please enjoy the event and continue to be safe.
Good evening and welcome to the fifth night of the second annual Candidates Forum Week, sponsored by the Staten Island Coalition of Black-led Community-Based Organizations. The Staten Island Coalition of Black-led Organizations was formed in 2021 in an effort to bring together several organizations dedicated to focusing on how issues that are important to the broad and growing communities of color on Staten Island are being addressed by its elected officials. My name is Deanna Alexander, and I am a member of the Alpha Beta Pi Omega chapter of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, representing them and the Staten Island Political Action Club. Our coalition pledges to maintain each forum as a balanced opportunity for all candidates to express their views. We are nonpartisan and do not support any political party or candidate. To assure our members are informed voters, we will spend each night this week meeting the candidates who accepted our forum invitation. It is very important for you to know that we sent personal invitations to each candidate running for federal, state, and Staten Island-wide offices. Those that appear on the forums accepted our invitation. Those candidates that do not appear on any of the forums did not respond to our invitation. Tonight, we will hear from candidates running for the office of the New York State Attorney General and the New York State Comptroller. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to thank each of the coalition members for their continued partnership and support on this important and historic voter engagement effort. All of the partner organizations will be listed in the credits at the conclusion of tonight's session. Early voting starts this coming Saturday, October 29th, and your vote matters. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and remember, if you don't vote, you don't count. As I said before, my name is Deanna Alexander, and I am a member of the Alpha Beta Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I will be your moderator for the New York State Attorney General and Comptroller. The rules for this evening are as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves with an opening statement, 90 seconds to answer questions that have been predetermined by coalition members, and 1 minute at the end for a closing statement. Attendees, please place your questions in the question and answer box. If time permits, we will allow for additional questions from the floor. We look forward to providing a comprehensive forum featuring the candidates vying to be your next Attorney General and Comptroller. I hope tonight is a valuable experience and that all members of the Staten Island community remember to participate in the elections. During early voting, which starts this Saturday, October 29th through November 6th, or on Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th. To ensure fairness, candidates will speak in the order they arrived at the virtual forum. Our speaking order for opening statements is Attorney General Letitia James. I now invite Attorney General Letitia James to give her opening statement.
Hello, Staten Island civic organizations and sororities. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you. My name is Letitia James, the Attorney General of the great state of New York. And I apologize for not being with you in person, but unfortunately there are so many events that we have pre-scheduled prior to receiving your invitation. But I wanted to speak with you this afternoon and to let you know how proud I am of all the work that you do on Staten Island. I want you to know that I continue to stand up for your rights, continue to stand up to use the law both as a sword and as a shield. Because at this point in time, we've been through so much. We've been through the pandemic, economic instability. We've been through challenges to our democracy. And it's really critically important that we have an Attorney General who understands and recognizes all of the issues that people are concerned with. And I recognize right now the economy and public safety are a major issue in the city of New York. And that's why, as the Attorney General, I have removed over 3,500 guns off of the streets of New York State. We have joined with law enforcement officers all across the state of New York to take down gangs and individuals trafficking in drugs. In addition to that, we have filed actions against gun manufacturers who have trafficked and who have been selling ghost guns into the streets of New York State, which is in violation of the law. I will continue to stand up against those who again seek to turn back the clock of progress. And it's important that individuals know, particularly women, that we should have full autonomy to our bodies. And as the Attorney General, I've taken on consumer fraud, environmental degradation, environmental injustice, and I focused on antitrust issues and more. My work is incomplete, but nonetheless, it's really critically important that I learn from all of you on Staten Island the issues that you care about, and that I continue to work with you as we go forward. It's been my honor and my privilege to serve you, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Congratulations to all of the honorees, and congratulations to the civic associations and the sororities of Staten Island. Thank you for all that you do, thinking about others before you think about yourself. I'll see you soon. Letitia James.
For your first question, Attorney General, what would be the top legislative priority you would pursue should you be reelected to the office of Attorney General? What specific solutions would you put forth?
As the Attorney General of the state of New York, it's been my honor and my privilege to represent the legal interests of the state of New York, to defend the state of New York, as well as to engage in affirmative litigation. We still have a lot of unfinished business, and we will continue to stand up on behalf of reproductive rights, stand up on behalf of our environment, consumer fraud. We will continue to represent the interests of the LGBTQ community and other marginalized and vulnerable populations. It's important that individuals understand that I, Letitia James, am the people's lawyer and will continue to serve the interests of the state of New York without fear and without favor.
Looking at the recent tragic events, gun violence is gripping the nation. How would you mobilize the Office of the Attorney General to combat gun violence and demand stronger gun legislation?
As the Attorney General of the state of New York, as of today, we have removed over 3,500 guns off of the streets of New York State. We've taken action with law enforcement officers all across the state of New York to take down gangs and to take down individuals who are trafficking in guns and in drugs. And we have initiated litigation against gun manufacturers and gun distributors who are selling ghost guns, which are guns that are unmarked and untraceable and serve as a danger to law enforcement officers all throughout the state of New York. We will continue to raise our issues and focus on consumers, particularly consumers who purchase items. It's important that we have a merchant code for individuals who purchase guns, and we have been working with the industry to establish a merchant code for guns. And two, we've been working with credit card companies also to track individuals who purchase guns as well. This will go a long way in addressing gun violence in the state of New York. And lastly, we've been, again, urging the federal government to pass responsible gun laws all across this country, and in particular, banning assault weapons. It's important that individuals understand that the streets of New York State, as well as across this country, that there's no need for an assault weapon, and that we need to return to the days where we had an assault weapon ban in this country. It will go a long way to reduce mass shootings, and will go a long way to keep all of us safe.
What would be your approach to addressing federal actions that might be deemed harmful to New York State? Please be specific.
Under the previous administration, as you know, it was New York who led the way in litigation against the previous federal administration, who sought to turn the clock back on all the progress that we have made in the area of the environment, in reproductive health care, in defending the rights of the members of the LGBTQ community, in defending the right to vote, in defending the right to have autonomy over our full bodies, and defending the right to represent the interests of immigrants right now who are under attack. And as you know, we defended census, we defended DACA, and we will defend all efforts again to have New York represent the values of the state of New York and to move this country forward and to make it a more perfect and just nation. As the Attorney General of this great state of New York, it is my priority to make sure that the voices of everyone are heard and that the voices of marginalized and vulnerable populations have a voice in government and that their rights are protected. And that's what we have done in the last 4 years. And hopefully that's what we will do in the next 4 years with your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General Letitia James, for responding to our questions. Unfortunately, none of the candidates for Comptroller of New York State responded to our invitation. The Comptroller for New York is the Chief Financial Officer. They serve 4-year terms, and they ensure that the state and local governments use taxpayer money effectively and efficiently to promote the common good. They also administer the state's retirement system for public employees and maintain the state's accounting system and payroll. They review state contracts and audit payments. Here's a fun fact. The office manages a $251.1 billion public pension plan, one of the largest in the United States. We'd like to thank all of the candidates who responded to our invitation. And now I'd like to take a moment to invite everyone, encourage everyone to please remember to go out and vote. Early voting starts tomorrow, October 29th, and it runs until November 6th. And of course, you can vote on Election Day, November 8th. Remember, your vote counts. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Neil Berry.
This evening's forum, sponsored by the Coalition Staten Island Black Community-Based Organization. My name is Neil Berry, and I am a member of SIPAC, which is Staten Island Political Action Committee. And I will be your moderator for the New York City, actually, Supreme Court and Civil Court judges. The rules for this evening are as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, 90 seconds to answer questions predetermined by the coalition's members. Anybody attending this will be putting their questions into the question box, which will be attended by Jazzy Robinson, the Honorable Jazzy Robinson. We look forward to providing a comprehensive forum featuring the candidates vying to be our next judges, your Supreme Court and Civil Court judges. I hope tonight is a valuable experience that all members of the Staten Island community member participate in the elections during early voting starting on Saturday, October 29th, November 6th, or on November 8th. To ensure fairness, candidates will speak in the order they arrive at the virtual forum. Our speaking order for opening statements as follows. Our first candidate is the Honorable Judge Judith McMahon, followed by Honorable Ann Thompson, and then Matthew Sotomayor.
Good evening, everybody. Initially, allow me to tell you how honored I am to be before this group today. I believe somebody said before recording that it's important that the community know who the judges are, and I could not agree with that more. I am actually running for re-election to the New York State Supreme Court. I have been a Supreme Court judge for 14 years and wish to continue being a Supreme Court judge. I have worked arduously each and every day to ensure fairness in every case that I have presided over. I feel that I do have a great sense of being able to synthesize complex matters into something that is understandable for all. Right now, I am presiding in 2 counties, New York County and Richmond County, where I am doing complex tort litigation, also known as medical malpractice. This kind of suits my history, my educational history, because I was a pharmacist before going to law school. So I just want to say how honored I am. I am willing to answer all questions that you want to pose to me. I want to tell you that it is my honor to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Now we have Judge Ann Thompson.
I think the last time I saw everyone was back in the last November, the last time we did this. And then as judges, we go back into obscurity since we're not allowed to really participate in any political events. But so not to, I basically am just going to repeat sort of what I said last time I was here, which was just about my experience, which is that, well, I'm a Staten Islander. I'm a mother of 3. I have 3 college kids, which I sometimes find hard to believe. And I've lived in Staten Island all my life, with the exception of going to college and law school. I originally did a lot of corporate work, and then I stayed home with my kids after 9/11 for a couple of years. I made the decision to go back to work, but I knew that I wanted to, I guess, pivot into a different direction and do more work that was geared towards community-based service work and government service. And so I wanted to be a prosecutor. Domestic violence and child sexual abuse were 2 areas that I had a particular interest in, both personally and intellectually. And I applied to the Staten Island DA's office, and I was hired by DA Donovan back in 2007. And I stayed throughout his tenure working in criminal court, and ultimately becoming part of the Domestic Violence and Sex Crimes Bureau. And then I stayed through portions of DA McMahon's tenure in the DA's office. When I left the DA's office, I was the Bureau Chief of Special Victims. And we did a variety of different kinds of cases. I did domestic violence cases, child sexual abuse, adult sex crimes, any crimes against seniors and people with special needs, and as well as child homicides and domestic violence homicides. Ultimately, I was appointed by Mayor de Blasio to be a judge in February of 2018. And for about 4 years, I served mostly in the domestic violence part in Manhattan. And we saw, hundreds of cases, 100 cases a day at least. Obviously, the level of activity in Manhattan criminal court is a lot higher than in Staten Island, which is a good thing. As a Staten Island community, we have less crime. But in January of this year, I came back to be supervising judge of Staten Island Criminal Court. And so what that entails is just overseeing all of the day-to-day administrative and activities of the judges, and dealing with all of the different agencies that interact in criminal court, and making sure that defendants are seen relatively quickly and move through the process, and make sure that we are doing what we need to do to make sure that cases are not lingering in court, and that we are giving everybody, both the complainants as well as the defendants, their day in court when required. And so I am happy to be back, and it is great to see all of you, especially Jazzy. And thank you for allowing us to be here tonight.
We want to say thank you for your answers. And we'll now begin with the questions. First question we'll have is, who was your judicial role model and why? And that question is for Judith McMahon to begin with.
I believe that my judicial role model would have to have been a judge who I worked with for 11 years. So prior to going on the bench, I was a principal law clerk for 11 years to a Supreme Court judge in Richmond County, who did both criminal and civil. It was at that time, his name was John Leone. And it was at that time that I was able to experience the breadth of the work that a Supreme Court judge does, both on the criminal side and on the civil side. There was a certain patience that was always that was always obvious. There was a deliberation of before a decision went out. And there was great care in ensuring that each litigant got their full day in court. And working with him for 11 years, I have to say he passed away abruptly in June of 2001. But working with him for 11 years was really a great privilege. He was prior to going on the bench, he was a legal aid attorney and was very versed in criminal law. And I was able to really, we did many criminal trials. We did many civil trials together. And it was a wonderful experience. But again, it was the type of law that we were able to experience, both the criminal side and on the civil side. It was the way he dealt with the large caseload that we had, which was both criminal and civil. And it was the respect that he showed for every attorney and every litigant that came into our courtroom. And I did try to emulate that same type of atmosphere in my courtroom in the last 14 years. When anybody who knows that they come into that courtroom, they know that they will be treated with respect and dignity that a courtroom should always have. And I've tried to do that in the last 14 years, and I would like to continue to do that in the future. I have to apologize. I've been a little under the weather, so I apologize for the throat. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ann Thompson. Same question is, who was your judicial role model and why?
So I would, three. The first is, as a new ADA, you first go into criminal court and the first person you meet on Staten Island is Judge Alan Meyer. And he is, he's a legend in criminal court history on Staten Island. And the reason he's important is not only because he's the one that you're going to see the most often, but he shaped how now in retrospect, how I treat the new ADAs, because as a criminal court judge, what you have is a whole bunch of new lawyers who are trying to learn how to do their jobs. And what he did, and you didn't realize it as he was necessarily doing it, because he would yell and, you know, you would get very intimidated, but he would never let you hurt yourself. And he would never let you hurt your case and who you were representing, whether you were the prosecution or whether you were the defense. He always made sure that what needed to happen, happened. And so I try to sort of emulate that as what they call me is the new Alan Meyer, because I'm the new supervising judge there. So that he was just wonderful in that way. And he taught you without you even realizing that you were being taught. The next judge, as I got promoted to do felonies, was Judge Rienzi. Again, he was the one that you saw most often. He was in the upfront part. So that's where you sort of start your case before you get sent out for hearings and trial. And what was amazing about him was he just knew the law so well. And he knew the law better than the parties knew the law in a lot of cases. And you know, again, super fair, always really trying to make sure the right thing was done by the case, always making sure, you know, as the prosecution was held to their standard, protecting the defendants when he needed to, depending on the caliber of defense attorney he had before him. But, and just always just really good on the law, always respectful. You always, the courtroom decorum was at its highest level. He held you to a high standard. You wanted to be a good lawyer because you wanted him to respect you. And I want lawyers, I want to know my job well enough that lawyers that are before me want my respect. And then the last one is, and he was a colleague as much as he was a judge that I practiced before, still a judge now in Staten Island Supreme, and that is Mario Mattei, who is, I think, one of the nicest people that I've encountered, especially as a judge. What I learned from him is he treats everyone well. He's just a nice person. That doesn't mean, and what he taught me is that you can demand respect. You can require the lawyers to do what they're supposed to do. You can demand the respect of the defendants and have the defendants treated well, and be nice. Not everything has to be, you don't throw on a robe and all of a sudden you are just king of the world. You can treat people well and respectfully and still get done what needs to get done. And he just does that so well, and he does that with such grace, and everyone just genuinely respects him. So
Yeah, so I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for that. And now we'll go on to question number 2, and this is for Judith, Honorable Judith McMahon. What is your vision for the future of our judicial system? What changes would you advocate for and why?
I think that our judicial system, well, right now, as I know that most are aware, the judicial system is in quite a bit of flux because the chief judge of the state of New York resigned. We are still balancing pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and we are now trying to do a quote unquote catch up to try to ensure that everybody gets a trial if that's the way it goes. What I would like to see is to have in the court system to have more personnel. I think that we need more social workers in the court system. I think that we need more people to ensure that that paperwork is done and processed correctly. I myself have had 3 phone calls today because the attorneys just couldn't get that paperwork into the clerk's office, and there was difficulty with that. And I think that if we had more personnel, that would be more streamlined. And my vision would be that we have a new chief judge who has a sense of strength and fairness, is not adversarial with the judges, and there was that at times with the prior one, and has a sense of to comport, to have a respect for the judiciary and for everything that we do each and every day to make your lives hopefully better. The judiciary is the branch of government that has the most direct effect on an individual's life. When whether Judge Thompson or I make a decision, she in the criminal end, me in the civil end, that has a direct effect on that particular litigant's life immediately. And so I would like to have more personnel in the court system. I would like to have more social workers in the court system to help with many of the issues that come up each and every day. I think that we need, and I do think that the sense of fairness, the sense of respect has to come from the very head of the judicial system. And I hope that the governor picks somebody who has those qualities and a sense of vision because the judiciary can do a lot. They can do a lot, and to give us the resources necessary to do that.
I want to thank you again for that. So Judge Arnold Thompson, the same question is, what is your vision for the future of our judicial system? What changes would you make? What would you advocate for, and why?
I think Judge McMahon's comment about social workers is right on target. I think what we have to recognize is, and a lot of the conversation that surrounds the new bail law, a lot of that is really about a concern about people who are laboring under mental health issues. And so the problem is that in the criminal court system, there is by and large, most of the defendants that we see have some other issue that is causing them to be there. So whether it's a substance abuse problem or a mental health problem, insecurities surrounding housing, you name it. But by and large, it is mental health. And the problem is that we don't have the resources available to us to address the mental health issues that would prevent them from prevent recidivism, just prevent them being in the criminal justice system, period. And so we are making a lot of strides to make sure that our court has a mental health part where we are working with different community providers to help defendants get proper mental health programs and screenings and services. But that needs to be expanded. It needs to be expanded dramatically across the city, and but it requires funding. It requires funding. It requires services. It also requires service providers, and there just aren't as many service providers in the community as, especially on Staten Island. A main problem with Staten Island the court system on Staten Island is that we don't have a lot of these services that other counties have. And so what I would love to see in the future is that there's an increase in funding for diversion programs and alternatives to incarceration, but with a very, very heavy emphasis on mental health treatment.
I want to thank you again for your answers. Judge Judith McMahon, I'd like to ask you, do you believe there is an underrepresentation of women or people of color in the court system? If so, how would you work to correct the problem?
I think, quite frankly, that's a very interesting question. So I hope I don't go over time here, but so what had happened recently is that the prior chief judge, before she resigned, was putting through a court merger. And in the judicial system, we have our Judicial Friends, which is a African-American judicial group. So for many, many reasons that I won't bore you with here, I was against court merger. And one of the big reasons I was against court merger is that many of the counties where African Americans were just kind of like becoming district leaders, getting people, getting qualified candidates to run for a judge. This was going to take that rug and just rip it out from their feet. So Judge Paul Wooten, who is on the second department, who was chair of the Judicial Friends a few years ago, we had big talks about how this was an unfair practice, in my very humble opinion, and in his. He wrote a letter, a very beautifully well-written letter, indicating that this court merger system, which would have been on the ballot, by the way, if it had passed both houses in 2 consecutive years, which it never did, by the way, but the main reason it did not is because of the fact that this court merger, in the Judicial Friends' opinion, would have decreased and not increased the diversity in the judiciary. So if you go to other counties, clearly Richmond County is a bit behind on the diversity wheel, without a doubt. We certainly have qualified candidates. In Richmond County right now, our administrative judge is African American. We will have our first African American woman elected in November. And I have to say a little bit that I was the first woman elected from the 13th Judicial District. And so we all pave little roads, right? We all pave little roads to make a highway, right? So at any rate, I do think that we have to be very careful of legislation that comes down, that tries that under the guise of improvement when it is not an improvement. I think that we have to get more candidates who are, and I always say qualified candidates, like obviously Judge Thompson, who can go forward and become judges. I think excuse me, Richmond County is difficult. We've all saw that last year, but that doesn't mean that we stop fighting. We keep on continuing to fight. We fight the good fight each and every day. So I do think that there's certainly room for improvement, Mr. Berry, particularly in Richmond County. And I will say that I do think that the Office of Court Administration is trying to become more diversified each and every day. There's still a lot of room improvement there.
We want to thank you for that
Thank you.
answer. Judge Ann Thompson, same question. Do you believe there is an underrepresentation of women or people of color in the courts system? And so, how would you work to advocate or change this?
So part of the issue, I think, is less. I don't think you can start looking at just judicial candidates. I think you have to go all the way back to who are, and I've only really sat in criminal, and so my universe is criminal. But I think what we really need to start addressing is the number of attorneys of color that are working in defense work and attorneys of color that are working in district attorney's offices. And I think what you would find is that that's where the numbers are really truly suffering. And that's in large part where that is your pool of candidates for judicial seats. And so we have to kind of stop. There has to be some part of the issue with people going into these fields is that they're not well paying. And also they're not only are they not well paying, but if you've looked at the papers in the last 2 years, especially since the bail and discovery laws have changed, it's not really glorified work to be a prosecutor these days. People don't respect the job as much as they did, I think, in 2007, when I became a prosecutor. And people don't respect being defense attorneys so much anymore either. What's a shame is that they're the underpinnings of the Constitution. They're the ones that are keeping the Constitution alive and making sure that people's rights are respected and honored. But that being said, that's kind of where the diversity in the judiciary really comes from, is who is your pool of attorneys? And if you're not going to do the work that requires us to get that pool really healthy and enriched, then you're not going to have any candidates of quality to take any of the judicial seats. And so I think we have to sort of really start going to the law schools and also just when we talk about funding for district attorneys' offices and for legal aid, we really have to divert some of that money that they get to salaries to make sure that they actually attract qualified candidates who ultimately can then take the seats that we need them to take. So, diversity, I think, is suffering now. I do see in the next couple of years, I think it's just going to get worse.
I want to thank you for your cooperation in these questions. We have a question and answer box, and Jazzy Robertson will be handling that. Is there any questions in Q&A?
No, there's no questions in the Q&A.
Okay. At this present time, I'm through the questions. Thank you so much. So at this time, you all will be giving 1 minute for a closing statement, starting with Judge Judith McMahon. Thank you.
Good evening again, everybody. And again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for inviting me here tonight. And really, the questions were intuitive and meaningful for the future of the judiciary. As far as with me, I can tell you that I will work hard each and every day to ensure fairness and justice gets done in my courtroom. Just by nature, I am, I can tell you, a very hardworking person, which is why I have been entrusted with not one part, but two parts in two counties. I just want to say a little bit that prior to even going on the bench, I was one of the first female plaintiffs, medical malpractice trial attorneys in New York. And maybe at another time, I could tell you all those wonderful experiences to set the road and so that the younger female trial attorneys after me could have a much smoother road. So I just want to say I've been around, definitely. I understand what it's like not to get fair treatment, and I will never, ever, ever allow that to happen into my courtroom. But thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Be well.
Thank you. And now we'll have the Honorable Ann Thompson.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I really think that I have one of, if not the best job in the world. It has been an honor to just serve. It was an honor to serve as an assistant district attorney, and I feel like this is just sort of an extension of that. It has been my goal to make sure that I do the best job that I am capable of doing. And what that means to me is that for every person that comes into my courtroom, I want them to know that if they need to be heard, that I am willing to hear them out. I may not go in their favor, I may not decide in their favor, but ultimately I want everyone that comes into my courtroom to feel as if I respect them and that they have the right to be present. And my goal, if elected to the Supreme Court, is to carry that forward and to represent my community and make my community proud as a Staten Islander. And I just hope that I'm given that opportunity. So thank you all for having me.
Yes, and thank you once again to both of you for honoring your commitments. I say good night myself, and I'm turning it over, I think, to the Honorable Debbie Rose. Thank you. My name is Neil Berry. I will be the moderator for Civil Court Judge candidates. I now invite Matthew to give your opening statement.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Santamoro, and I'm a candidate for the open seat of Staten Island-wide Civil Court Judge. Thank you very much for having me and for allowing me to speak to your coalition. I'm honored to be here. A little bit of background on me. I was born in Staten Island, raised in Staten Island. I went to high school at St. Joseph by the Sea, where I played basketball, and moved on to college at Pace University, where I also played basketball. I'm very proud of that because I learned valuable lessons as an athlete, but as far as getting out of my comfort zone and doing things that I wouldn't normally do in order to succeed and in order to better myself. I married my high school sweetheart while I was in law school. Her name is Christina. I went to Hofstra University School of Law. My wife and I have two children, Matthew and Marina, ages 23 and 21. We live in the Oakwood section of Staten Island. Upon graduating law school, I got a job at the Staten Island District Attorney's Office. Honorable William Murphy hired me, and I worked there for the first 3 years of my career as an assistant DA, prosecuting all types of crimes. Upon leaving the DA's office, I worked for 1 year in a law firm in Manhattan to learn the civil side of the business. And in the year 2000, I opened up my own practice here in Staten Island, where I've been concentrating on criminal defense work and plaintiff's personal injury work ever since. I am a trial lawyer. I'm in court every day. I try cases. I handle cases from the beginning to the end, to verdict if necessary. I've represented well over 1,000 Staten Islanders in the 22 years that I've been in private practice. And that experience is what's led me to want to now extend my experience, get out of my comfort zone again, get back into public service and challenge myself to be a civil court judge. I feel the vast experience I have as a lawyer, I feel that my commitment to our community along with my family values and my morals, will make me a good candidate. And I hope that you guys would consider that as well. Thank you for allowing me to address you.
Thank you, Mr. Santamora. I couldn't pronounce your name, but I apologize for not using it.
That's quite all right.
We will be starting the questions now. First question we'll have is, who are your judicial role models and why?
Yes, that's an easy one. Being in Staten Island, I've had the opportunity to appear before, practice before, and have my clients appear before excellent judiciary. One first that comes to mind is Judge Alan Meyer, whom I've appeared before as an assistant DA and as a defense attorney. And there are many things about Judge Alan Meyer that make me admire him. But most importantly, as a defense lawyer especially, if I had a client that was appearing before Judge Meyer, I knew that that client was going to be treated fairly. I knew that as long as I did my job well, that client was going to be given every opportunity to get the best possible result for his or her case. I also knew that Judge Meyer didn't necessarily want to see my client or any client be incarcerated. Judge Meyer liked to see people get rehabilitated. He singularly is the most influential person to me wanting to become a judge, even though I'm running for civil court judge. And I'll get to that in a minute. But Judge Meyer was beyond reproach as far as his judicial temperament, as far as his authoritative stature, as far as clients and lawyers having the respect for him, and he having the respect for both the lawyers and the clients. I can go on and on about Judge Meyer, but I want to move on because there are others. And on the civil side of things, Judge Orlando Marazzo Jr., who is currently on the bench in Supreme Court under recertification. I have appeared before him and I have tried many cases before Judge Marazzo since he became a judge. And I witnessed the way he handles his courtroom. In the civil side of things, it's different. It's about the parties, of course, but it's the attorneys handling the case that's appearing before the judge, mostly without the parties. He runs his courtroom very well. He wants to try and resolve cases in the most fair manner to both sides. He's good at settling cases. He's an excellent trial jurist. His part runs well. Those two, above all the other stellar judges, Judge McMahon and Judge Thompson fall into that category as well. But those are my two biggest influences.
Appreciate your timing and your answer, sir. My second question, what is your vision for the future of our judicial system? What changes would you make and what would you advocate for and why?
So in the recent past, going through COVID, going through all of the changes that were required, the virtual nature of court, I would like to see court back to what it was. I would like to see cases being heard in person. We're getting to that, but I would like to see it happen. I feel that advocates advocate better when they're in the room together with the judge, when the parties are available to be present in the courtroom. The decorum of a courtroom is very important. The respect for the process is very important. And it's much, much more difficult to have that same decorum and respect when people are sitting in their living rooms, appearing in court before a judge in a very, very important manner. That being said, I also would, I think if judicial efficiency is incredibly important because of the tremendous backlogs we've had. And I just want to make sure, I would want to make sure as a judge that although efficiency is of the utmost importance, what's much more important is that individuals are heard properly and that cases are being given their proper due. And we're not just worried about rushing through a calendar and getting cases done as quickly as possible. Quickly is important, but getting cases resolved the way they're supposed to be resolved and giving people their right and to have their day in court is of the utmost importance. Thank you.
Yes, certainly appreciate that. My final question would be, do you believe there is an underrepresentation of women or people of color in the court system? If so, how would you work to correct the problem?
Simple answer is yes. And how would I correct the problem? Well, as a lawyer, I've never been part of the judicial system yet. So I'm not certain how the workings of the system are with respect to getting people involved, other than what I'm going through right now, and that's the election process. But as far as myself personally, what I've been doing and what I would hope to continue to do is support qualified candidates, such as Ann Thompson, such as Judge Rajaswari, such as Justice Lizette Colon, people who clearly are qualified to do the job at a very, very high level and have the experience that's necessary to do that. Now, how do you get that experience? Well, I had the opportunity to hear Judge Thompson's answer, and I'm not trying to copy her answer, but I concur with what she's saying. Getting women, getting people of color involved in the district attorney's offices or the legal aid offices at the lower levels and building them up, building those candidates and potential judges up from the ground floor into positions where they can seize opportunities such as what I'm doing. I started in the DA's office. I see it as an excellent way of getting to stature and status in the judicial system. And when I say status, I just mean sitting on the bench making decisions, or even working in the courtroom as a clerk, or whatever position that is open and that requires attention. So the answer is yes. I believe we have to support our candidates that we have, the qualified candidates, and get people started at a grassroots level and working and building up into those positions within the court system.
Once again, I thank you again for your commitment to the process. We now will be giving you an opportunity for your closing. I think it's a minute. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. In closing, I'd just like to say my experience from the criminal side and from the civil side should, at this stage in my life and my career, will make me a good candidate, will help me be a good judge if the people of Staten Island choose to elect me. I didn't choose to be a judge when I was 30 or 35 or even 40, because in my opinion, I didn't have the experience that I needed. I didn't have the social experience even to be even thinking about a judicial position. I'm 53 now. I've represented individuals for more than 20 years. I represented our community as a Richmond County DA. I understand people's problems and why things happen, not just that things happen, but quite often there's a reason why. I believe that at this stage in my life, I'm not looking to retire. I have a lot to give back to the community of Staten Island. I would love and relish the opportunity to get back into community service and be a judge. And Staten Island is my home. I'd like to make my home a better place if that's at all possible. Once again, I thank you all for your opportunity that you're giving me to address you, and I hope to serve you all in the future.
Yes, and I want to say thank you, and thank you for the resort on Alan Meyer. Very good person. Thank you, and I'm going to say goodnight and turn this over to the Honorable Debbie Rose for closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. And that concludes tonight's forum. My name is Debbie Rose, and I'm representing the Staten Island Political Action Club and Alpha Beta Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And on behalf of the Coalition of Staten Island Black-led community-based organizations, Candidates Forum Week, we thank our candidates for their participation tonight and for their willingness to run for this important office, and we offer them good luck. We thank our coalition partners and their respective members for listening in tonight and taking the time to ensure that you are informed, civically engaged voters. I also want to thank the tech team for your very patience and expertise on hosting every day of the Candidates Forum Week. If you missed any part of our very informative forums, you can view the live stream of all of the forums on Monday, October 24th through Friday, October 28th on Facebook and YouTube Live. Remember, early voting starts Saturday, October 29th, 2022, okay, so I'm gonna do that over. There's too many pauses. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Berry, and that concludes tonight's forum. My name is Debbie Rose, and I'm representing the Staten Island Political Action Club and Alpha Beta Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And on behalf of the Coalition of Staten Island Black-led community-based organizations Candidates Forum Week, we thank our candidates for their participation tonight and for their willingness to run for this important office. And we offer them good luck. We thank our coalition partners and their respective members for listening in tonight and taking the time to ensure that you are an informed, civically engaged voter. We also want to thank the tech team for their patience and expertise on hosting every day of the Candidates Forum Week. If you missed any part of this very informative forum, you can view the live stream of all of the forums starting Monday, October 24th through Friday, October 28th on Facebook and YouTube Live. Remember, early voting starts Saturday, October 29th through Sunday, November 6th. And Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th. In closing, we want to remind you to vote because your vote matters. And if you don't vote, you don't count. Until next time, good night.